Welcome everyone to my August 11th webinar on amazing secrets of psychic healing. Amazing secrets of psychic healing. That's actually the title of a book, and I thought that would be a good basis for talking about how I do my psychic healing, my energy healing. Psychic means it's done with the mind. It's a mental process, but it's actually done not with the gross thinking level of the mind, but with the subtle level of the mind, so that we basically tune in to someone's energy field, read that field, get the information that we need, and then let nature guide us in creating whatever change or transformation needs to take place. When I first started developing my abilities as a psychic healer, you've heard me tell this story perhaps before. I explored a number of different modalities. I eventually discovered matrix energetics, which was taught by Richard Bartlett. Richard was an amazing teacher. He was to do the things that he did, to discover the things that he did about healing. He had to really let go of the regular world to a considerable degree and just explore really pretty far out stuff. It was pretty amazing. He told a lot of stories. My path has been much more staid, much more settled. I'm a scientist. I approach things systematically. I have a very different approach, and essentially the exact opposite of Richard Bartlett's. But Richard was both a chiropractor and a naturopath. He had PhDs in both fields and practiced. He was very, very good with physical healing. He could do other stuff too, but he was particularly good with physical healing. On at least 3 occasions, I saw him straighten out scoliosis, curvature of the spine. Which was, to see it happen is absolutely dramatic, because you see it, you just see a person who's kind of bent over and they just suddenly straighten right up. And, it's really pretty amazing. He was very good at the physical stuff. And he recommended a book called Amazing Secrets of Psychic Healing. And in it were a variety of methods, but fundamentally an approach. It was basically one approach to healing that allowed you to use imagination, creativity, spontaneity, intuition to bring about transformations of mostly physical stuff, but also some mental stuff. I'll go through some of that later in the presentation tonight. But it was an amazing and fascinating book. Now, I wanted to make the point, which I put in the invitation letter, that Bartlett, Richard as he liked to be called, was a person who allowed people to use whatever approaches and in whatever way worked best for them. And I really appreciated that, because I run into other teachers and they said, do it my way or don't do it. And so for one reason or another, that wasn't my style. I wanted to be able to let the intelligence of nature direct what I should be doing. And so this book, which Richard had recommended, was kind of a way of saying, look, this is how you can go about doing all kinds of stuff. And so it was the way, I could incorporate those things into Richard's approach. And I'm going to go through all that here in just a few minutes. But the book showed its readers how to heal physical problems and other maladies. I like that word, maladies, for everything else. Now, matrix energetics provides a whole variety of approaches. And, most fundamentally is the technique of how you get into being able to do that, which I'll go through. But among these techniques that Richard taught as part of matrix energetics, one was the 2-point technique, and I want to discuss that in just a little detail, because it's a very fundamental technique for allowing the intelligence of nature to do the healing. basically what you do is intuitively, you find a place that draws your attention where theoretically there is some problem. Something is going on there. So it draws your attention. And then you let your awareness drift and find another place that draws your attention. And then in your awareness, you allow those two separate things in space to become one. And in doing so, you just basically transcend. You're no longer focused on one of them or the other. You allow the transcendent to take over and include everything. And in doing that, you allow the intelligence of nature to produce changes, transformations in the energy field of a person and in their physical body. And it's a very simple technique to do. Pardon me. It's one of those first things you learn when you start learning matrix energetics. And you very quickly become aware that, wow, the energy field will shift if you just do that. Attention here, attention there. Let those two things merge into one big field, and transformation takes place. Now, another of Richard's techniques, and was actually was a cognition of his, was called 21 healing frequencies. And he cognized 21 different energy values that could be used in healing. And he would just start with number one and go through the list in his mind silently and see which ones to use. And that was an intuitive thing. You go through it, 1, 2, oh yes, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 will work. Any others? 11, 12. No, that's it. Okay, and so I'm demonstrating that you would be doing this kind of thing. All you had to do is know that there were 21 frequencies. You really didn't have to memorize what each of them did because you're not using your intellect to produce the change. You're using the frequency itself, the quality of that. Now, I took that technique because and used it in a different way. I discovered that various stones that I have that have nice properties, as people say, had abilities to heal certain kinds of things. And I would just look at and feel into a stone. They're all balls, actually, except for one of them that I use, of different sizes. Some of them are quite small, and then others are more like that. I would just sense what they were good for. And then I would use them psychically because most of my clients are not here in the house with me. I don't have to actually even see the balls. I just know them. But I do like to look at them sometimes if there's any question in my mind about which ball or balls to use. And so I just pick up the energy of that ball. It has a vibration. I pick up the energy of that on that subtle level. And I instill that into a person's field, usually in their, quote, body, meaning into the part of the field that their body sits in, but it could be elsewhere. And where to put it, again, is done intuitively. And we'll take that ball, yes, it's that ball, and it goes there. So it's all done intuitively. It's all done by sensing into the field. Now, when I heard that from Richard, that struck me as very vague. I really didn't understand what that was. So I think it bears perhaps some explanation to those who are on the webinar or who will see the video later, that what sensing into means. It means that you get a feeling. You know that I just have a ball sitting on a table in a nice array, which is very precisely picked, by the way. The array is not random. I take the balls and I go like, which one goes where? I don't have to do that very often, but they get moved sometimes because small hands, my grandchildren, pardon me, like to move them around. So particularly my youngest. And so I've asked her not to do that anymore. But so sometimes I have to rearrange the balls, and the balls are actually oriented. Yeah, you can see like that, so that I put them the way they want to be on the table, in the place they want to be, and then they produce a very powerful effect. It actually greatly increases the energy in my house. It's a very, very powerful thing. And I use those balls to treat all manner of stuff. Not everybody, needs one or two, but usually that's as many, one or two. And I use the energy and, just intuitively where to put it, and it produces effects. The ball that's in the center of the array on my table is a big rose quartz ball. It's about that big. It's much bigger than any of the others. And rose quartz is particularly good for the heart, for the emotional value of the heart. But that translates then also into the physical value of the heart. So when there is anguish, I'll just use that word, in a person, and any other kind of negative emotion, those are often residing in the heart or affecting the heart. And so the rose quartz ball energy, not the ball, doesn't actually go into people, just the energy of that, wherever they are in the universe, that person, I just instill that into the heart. Or sometimes, just recently I had the experience where a person was quite down and really not feeling well, and I just used the rose quartz ball and put them inside the ball, if you will, put the ball surround them, so that their whole body, their whole energy core was experiencing that uplifting quality, that soothing quality to the heart. So I took that notion of how you use frequencies and instill them, and I use these balls for healing, and I like them very much. I've had a feeling recently that I need one or two more. I'm not sure which ones they're going to be, but I will check at my local, I don't know what you call the store that sells that kind of stuff. But anyway, there is one here in Fairfield. I'll see if they have anything that just strikes my fancy that I should have. And if not, I'll go online and just, pick up the vibration from what people are selling online and try to use one of those. So those are great. Now, one of the things you need when you're doing this kind of psychic healing is information about what's going on. So when you connect with somebody's field, I'm going to talk about how you do that in a few minutes. When you connect with somebody's field, you got to find out what's going on with them. What are the problems? So typically we start with what's manifest, that is what they can actually experience. But oftentimes we'll go, if we don't start at that level, we'll go to the level where that they may not be aware of where the real reasons of things are going on. And so we're going to tune into that. So the way I've always used my hands, they're kind of like antennas. I can do it without my hands. I can do it with my hands in my lap, as some of you have experienced. But a lot of times I use my hands. They're kind of antennas, and they help my sense of intuition of what is going on with somebody. Like, is there a problem in the heart? I don't ask the question, is there a problem in the heart? My attention will just go there. And then it's like, and what am I seeing? What's there? Now, I often see things. I often hear things. A lot of times I'm just sensing into that, just having that feeling level, that intuitive sense of this is where my attention is. It's not should go, it's where it is. And so I follow that. Richard uses the word track that. It means that in my conscious awareness, I'm aware of where my attention is gone and just let that flow. And so one of the ways of answering questions is to just use the hand and ask, is it this? Or, what do it's that. I use it diagnostically. I remember very early on in my experience, I had a very interesting experience where we were having between sessions with Richard, we were on a break, and somebody asked me, or was asking a group of people, well, how do you know where to go? And which is what I was just trying to explain. You do it intuitively. You just see what comes into your awareness. And I said, well, you just go like this. And I would move my hand, and I consciously was just going to do a demonstration without actually tuning into the person. And so I was going to put my hand by their hip and say, see, my hand goes to your hip. But when I did it, my hand went, and my awareness went not to the hip joint, but to the left ovary. And so I went like, and oh, there's something, my attention goes to your ovary. If you're not aware of something, might want to get that checked out to see what was there. I wasn't trying to do a healing on, in that moment, but it just caught me. It's like my conscious mind said, put your hand by the hip to demonstrate what you were doing. But I was already tuned in to the person, and it was like, oh, it's the left ovary. Now, how do I know it's the left ovary and not the sigmoid colon? Intuition. It's like, that came to me. It's the left ovary. That's where my attention was, and I knew that. It's a knowingness. And many of you know that word. I think it's a made-up word. You know who made it up. It's a knowingness. It's the sense of a thing. You just have that sense. I know that. It's like, how do you know that 4 plus 5 equals 9? You can count it out on your fingers, but you just kind of know that because you know that. And how did you know you got the right answer? Because it feels right. It's just there. It's a sense of that knowing. It's really that simple. Anybody can do this if you want to. Now, it does take some practice. The practice is because the intellect always gets in the way when you first start out, though some people are more intuitive than others and get it faster. But Bibb, Benjamin Bibb, in this book, makes quite a point about practice and suggests that you practice on 20, 25, even 30 people, many of whom you don't even know. You just get names from friends to practice on. And you don't have to know what's wrong with them. That's part of the experience, is you tune in. You get a name, you get an age, you get a location, is the way he does it. I don't have to worry about location. My training, Richard, Maharishi, and others, is that the universe is a field of information, and it's a coherent field. All information is available everywhere. And I verified that as soon as I realized that when I was doing healing across a room, and I could do that same kind of healing anywhere in the world, that the information is just available. All I have to do is tune in. I'll go through the mechanics of tuning in just a minute. But we just tune in. And so the techniques allow the intelligence of nature to provide the means of transformation. You only have the goal, the intention. Oh, that person should be well. They should be happy. They should be able to do whatever. And then it manifests. Now, there's many additional things you can do, as I've already alluded to, but it's fundamentally you start out at that level. Doing so makes the healer a catalyst for change and allows change to occur without the healer being required to expend their own energy. I've made this point many times. I think I made it in my ebook that you can get from my website. Most of you, I hope, have seen it. I wrote it so long ago, I've forgotten what's in it. But I'm pretty sure I talked about the idea of not using my energy. Now, that's very different than things like, say, Qigong, an energy healing technique, and where they'll take energy from the universe. Yeah, you can see. Take energy from the universe and send it out to the recipient, to the person. But you're using some of your own energy when you do that. I remember one of the early techniques, pranic healing, and he talked a great deal about not taking on other people's energy and not expending yours. And I went like, that's not the approach I want to use. I want something that's safe for me. And so I got into doing that. So attention is the key. It's attention with intention. You have to have a goal. And that's the key to psychic healing. So this book, Amazing Secrets of Psychic Healing by Benjamin O. Bibb, he's actually the healer. He wrote the book. I think Joseph J. who's the co-author, actually, kind of took the transcript that Bibb dictated and organized it into a book. But it's all about Benjamin Bibb's work, B-I-B-B. And it reveals that it takes that principle, reveals how to take that principle and apply it to physical problems and other maladies, as I said. He calls this approach the meta-pic, meaning picture, technique. Sometimes he calls it metavision, healing vision or medical vision. But anyway, he uses meta-pic. He likes the short version of that, made up word. He thinks of this approach as scientific and mental, right? Because you undertake it consciously, but it's on the level, that subtle level. And so you do this healing. One of the other terms he used was televisional healing, televisual healing. And he gives lots of examples in the book. Book isn't terribly huge, a couple hundred pages, small. I just showed you the book. Let me see if that works. Yeah, there it is. That worked. When you do the zoom thing, you have to get the depth just right. So it's a nice little book. I don't know, 6 by 8.5 or something like that. And just full of examples. So you try this, try that. When you read through the book, you get the technique, you get the approach. That's what he's really teaching, is the approach. And then the specific problems, you just use your imagination, because that imagination tunes you into what's going on and produces or allows transformation to take place. And Bibb made an interesting point, which I wanted to share with you, and that is that he really emphasizes that you learn how to do psychic healing, you learn how to do this energy healing, before even considering how it works. When I studied with Richard Bartlett, he talked a lot about how it worked, as well as how to do it in his seminars. They were in-person seminars. And I took many, many of them, most of them twice, because I was a slow learner. But he says, just do it. Practice. And he says 20, 25, even 30 people. You practice and practice and practice. And you do them very quickly. He says, do a few a day, and he says, put their names and information on cards, and then make any notes about what you observe when you connect with them. So how do we do it? The first thing, you want to contact the inner or subconscious mind of the person to be healed. So there are steps. Now this is his description of how to do it. I'll give you Bartlett's in a little bit, and I'll tell you what I do, which is pretty much the same thing. Expand your inner vision from ordinary daydream condition to see the subject mentally and identify the illness, injury, or distress, as he put it. This means dissociating one's attention from the conscious mind and being present. He doesn't use the word presence, though. Meditation trains one to do this, but it can be done by distracting the conscious mind. And he actually describes how to do that. For most of us who have been involved with meditation, it's pretty much an automatic process. If we've been meditating for a while, you just switch from the conscious thinking level to the quieter level till it's silent, and then see what shows up. So, sorry, my phone rang, and I'm using my phone to talk to you. So there's some basic requirements. First of all, you have to have a desire to want to make the connection. When you're an experienced healer, I've discovered, I get to speak from experience. When you're an experienced healer, that desire is just a flick of the attention, flick of the intention. It's just, You just want to do it. You don't think, well, I'm going to connect to that person. You don't have to think it all the way through. You just like, I'm going to connect. And I've shared with you the experience. I had another one just recently. Somebody referred a couple of people to me, and they were describing them. And as they described them, they didn't give me the names. They didn't tell me where they were. None of the information that Bibb thinks is requisite connection information. They were just saying, this person has this, that, or the other thing, what they were describing. And there it was. And I went like, oh, so that person, I'm going to, they have a knot of energy. I call it a tangle of energy down in the pelvis in the first, maybe second chakra too. And I'm, that's going to need attention. It's going to be, I could tell that was going to be serious work. I have another client that has that situation. And the transformation is coming quite slowly because it's cancer and it's really set in there. But we're working on it, and I have every reason to believe that we will fix it. So the first thing is have a desire to make the connection. Second is to have a target that is some specific, and Bibb talks about individual, but it can be an animal, it could be a tree, it could be anything, it could be a rock if you wanted to. I've never really worked on rocks, to be honest with you, but in theory, you could do it. And you don't have to know the person. You don't really have to know anything about them because you're going to get that intuitively. But just reference information suffices. And if a friend is talking about somebody they know, that's all it takes. They don't have to tell you their name. They don't have to tell you where they are. They don't have to tell you exactly how old they are. That person is. You're going to tune in from the fact that they are tuned in. You're going to use that vibration to gain access to the person. Now, I'll talk about it now because it came to my mind. When you do that, you have to ask the person's permission. But assuming you have that permission, then you use an intention for an illness, injury, or condition that needs healing or transforming. You have to have some intention of what you're going to do. Why are we here? Oh, because you're not well in some way, or you're injured in some way, or you're just feeling crummy in some way. Now, Bibb uses what he calls the mental telephone method for making connection. Mentally, he says, you place a phone call to the target, and he actually suggests that you imagine using a phone. When you get familiar with this, you really don't need the phone, but it's a technique. It's a thing you can do, and it's what he does. Just identifying who you want to connect with is sufficient. And Bibb says, when you're dialing someone, and I say something, will answer after a ring or two. It's in your imagination. Introduce yourself. If they don't know who you are, who's calling up, it's not an arranged session. I work in arranged sessions, so they know who I am. Introduce yourself and ask if they wish to be healed or transformed. Permission to work with them is essential. As I say, things may pop into your awareness, but the healing you want to do, you need to ask their permission on that subtle level. You don't have to say it out loud. Now, when somebody does a session with me or any other healer, when then they're giving permission. They came to you because they want that. Now, I do some introductory sessions with people where they're not sure if they want it. So, we talk a little bit, and then I ask, can I check in now? And they always say yes, because that's why they're there. And then it goes pretty smoothly from there. And then I tell them things about what I'm seeing or feeling or sensing. And then we deal with things from there. So we introduce ourselves and get permission. And so unless you get a no answer, does happen, I have had it happen, unless you get a no answer, you just say, please indicate what needs healing or transformation, either by placing a hand on the affected part, and they'll put a hand, headache, shoulder, elbow, whatever. They'll put a hand on the affected part, or they may draw a mental picture. They may say, well, I have heart disease. And when they say that, they may say that out loud, they have a sense of obstructed arteries or whatever the problem is. And then you work with that. You may have to determine the cause of the I always call them the target, reference to Bibb's work. By asking the inner mind or by examining the target's etheric body, he calls it. So you check what's going on, what's the nature of this problem. They may tell you they have one thing, and you may find that it's something else. For instance, they might say, I have liver disease, and you check and you go like, there are parasites in there. And you say, well, how do you know? You're not a doctor and you don't have equipment, a biopsy or anything. How do you know? Intuitively. That's the whole point. You know it intuitively. So you check in. You start with whatever they've told you, if they've told you anything. And if not, you just say, indicate. Well, I don't feel good here, putting a hand over the liver. You can't see where my hand is. Putting a hand over the liver. And you go, oh, I see these little cysts of parasites. Or no, I won't say it. We'll leave that joke out. So you examine what's there. You just open yourself to what's there, whatever shows up. Do not doubt what comes to your awareness. Now, this takes a little work. Most people, I was a scientist, I tend to be inherently skeptical. So first, I didn't trust what showed up. And I later learned to do it. And I remember an experience which I'll share. Gone on a little long, but so I had this sense of somebody and something about being in space, and there was this web in space, and they were floating into it, and it was going to transform their energy. It was like this. I wasn't sure whether it was a healing machine or it was the problem itself, that they were caught in this web that was distorting their energy. I think it was the latter. At least I thought it was at the time. And then all of a sudden the person went like, I don't like that fantasy, because I was telling him what I was experiencing, which was a lesson for me, which Bibb has in his book. It says, don't tell people what you experience. Now, there's another technique that I learned where you let them tell you what they experience. And some people are really good at having a kind of fantasy, having an hallucination or an imagination of things going on, where they may find themselves sitting with a child of themselves as in their childhood, and that child is all upset and they're hurt, and so they just tell you what's going on. This can be done verbally. They may verbally tell you that, or you may just sense into that. I have that happen a lot, where I'm sensing into something and I'm going, this is old stuff. It just feels that way. It's intuitive. This is old stuff. Let me go back. And now Bartlett does a thing called timeline, where you just take a slider and you start at the present and you slide back towards birth. And you just, we stop here, or we stop there, and then another place. Sometimes it's multiple places. Or sometimes you just go, there's a child, and it's all curled up and it's crying and it doesn't want to be seen and it won't talk, And so you might do, would it be okay if I just sit with you? And they usually don't answer, but, it's like they don't run away. So you sit down with them in your mind. It's just all mental. And again, you don't tell your client you're doing this, you just do it. Although if the client does it, then you can just suggest, well, perhaps you'd like to sit down with your inner child and just be there with them. You don't have to do anything. Maybe just sit, get a sense how close to sit with them, right next to them, a little further away, quite a ways away, maybe across the room, or if you're outdoors, some space, whatever. But you do it intuitively. And then you see what comes into your awareness about what's the cause was. And usually the story unfolds. Something happened. One of the things that Bartlett presents, Bibb doesn't really emphasize past life stuff, but you know, you go like, this isn't from this life. We brought this into this life from, let's see, past life 1, 2, 3, 4. And oh yeah, there it is. It's fourth from the fourth past life. Okay, and what that was, and then this, sometimes you get a story. I never share those stories, or almost never share those stories with people, because then it becomes part of their story. You don't really want that. You're trying to clear up this story they're telling themselves about how they're supposed to be in this lifetime, and we want to let that go. Now, if you get a no when you're asked, do I have permission? That comes mainly from fear of the unknown, misunderstanding about psychic healing, sometimes the presence of secondary gain. They want to be sick. They get something out of being sick, mostly attention, caring, sometimes a quality of relationship they can't get in real life. So the presence of secondary gain, as it's called, from being unwell. There's even, I've seen it, martyrdom, basically a belief that one deserves this malady or suffering. That's the way it's supposed to be. And that's an unfortunate condition. But anyway, the inner mind sees and accepts your spontaneous imaginary creation and shares that with the mind of your target, your client, which stimulates the healing transformation process, because whatever one envisions is valid information, even if it is only symbolic. You don't know whether or not it's literally true. It doesn't matter. You're just feeling into it. Let me quickly go through Bartlett's method for making connection. He always suggests being comfortable in your own body to start out with. And people who've been on webinars with me before know I usually start by taking a couple of slow, deep breaths just to settle down. Find a restful place in your head, right? In that thinking process. Quieter, quieter, quieter. You quiet down and then take from that quiet place and drop down into your heart. Took me a while to learn to do that, to be in my heart. But it awakens the heart space. Remember, I was a very head guy, right? Very scientific, cognitive sort of person. But I finally got in touch with just being in the heart space and letting that expand out to infinity. Not everybody says it that way, but my training, expand to infinity. And then greet your target, your client, from a place of unconditional love, a place of no judgment. You just appreciate them for whoever they are. And then request permission, consent. We use the word consent these days for connection and communication. Typically, they'll say yes. They're eager to get healed. So express appreciation for the consent. So basically say, thank you. I'm happy to work on you. Let's see what we can do together. Merge your heart space with the heart space of your client, your target. You just connect with them. It's a feeling thing, but it takes you from your body to theirs. And you make that connection. Pardon me, I'm going to have to take a sip. So now you ask your target to show you what needs healing or transformation. And again, you don't have to do that in words. It's a feeling, just a feeling. Show me, feeling. And notice what comes into your awareness. Could be images, feelings, ideas, which means thoughts, concerns, appreciation, support, guidance, whatever comes. Bartlett's thing, and I love this phrase, notice what you notice. This to me was one of the key teaching points from Richard. And I heard it many, many times. And gradually I got to the point where I would notice what shows up. For me, it was, pardon me, for me, it was relatively easy because I don't have any imagination. So whatever showed up, I just took to be significant. I didn't know what it meant. Doesn't matter what it means. We're not trying to analyze the symbolism. It just notice what's there. We ask about the cause of the malady, present life, past lives, a familial pattern, a curse, karma, demonic possession. It happens, not very often, but I do run into it occasionally. A life lesson, a test of faith, all kinds of possibilities. So what's going on here? Now, you don't go through the list in your mind. When you do that, it's just be curious. What's the cause? You don't even have to say those words in your mind. It's just, I'm curious, and see what shows up. Attend to whatever shows up is the next point. Attend to whatever shows up and use whatever energy, psychic healing techniques seem appropriate. And a lot of times it's just whatever is in your imagination. Keep attention on whatever draws your attention until you feel a shift or release. Bartlett calls that tracking. Just track what happens. I've watched him work, and it took me a long time to really understand this. He'd be working on somebody, and then he'd go, done. And finally, after attending many seminars with Richard, I got what he was doing. I could feel the field that he was working on. And I could feel it shift, and then he'd go, done. And I'd go like, yeah, that's it. That's how you notice. You feel that something changed. If you don't feel something change, you got to do some more work, probably. You can check. Should I, continue? Yeah, continue. Perhaps another trick. Let's see what shows up. So when something shifts and things feel good, then go, is there anything else that needs my attention? And again, notice what you notice. Just notice what you notice. Eventually you get to a point where you feel it's ready to end. So to end a session, ask if it's okay. Ask the inner light of the person, the inner being of the person. It's okay to end the session. They almost always say yes. Or sometimes you get the sense of they're not really ready, and you say, well, I need to go, but we'll come back. And I'm glad that we're able to do this, and we'll reconnect when we need to, or we'll set an appointment to do it. And then disconnect by withdrawing your heart space, is what he calls it, from your client's heart space. You separate yourself. And now it's you and them, like normal. So Bibb provides some steps for healing. Wow, I really got to wrap this up, but I'm having a great time. So we'll keep going. Bibb's steps for healing. You start with the basic requirements, a desire to connect, specific target, an intention to change something. You connect with the inner mind or the inner space of the person or thing or animal. Observe the true nature of the malady. And that's just curiosity, just having that curiosity. It's attention with intention with curiosity. So you're open. Curiosity is very innocent, just whatever shows up. Identify the true cause. Use mental pictures. Can be words, can just be feelings, but mental pictures are very useful to show your client, your subject's inner mind, how to correct the malady. You don't think about it, you just do it. You don't go like, is this going to work? What should I use? It's just whatever comes to you, you just do it. You just do it. So that spontaneity is really important because you're connected with somebody's mind space, their inner being, and you're going to just go like, oh, you can heal that by this. I'll give you some examples in a moment. Use the energy healing techniques. There are many of them following your intuition. What should I use? Frequencies, 2 point, the stones that I have. Some people use wands, they use gems, they use colored lights. I can do that psychically. I don't have colored lights, but I can do it psychically. Instruct the target's inner mind on how to obtain the energy to heal. Sometimes it means drawing on, a time when they felt good or happy or empowered, or that they were able to heal something. They had a cut or a scratch or poison ivy, and they healed right up. You say, see, you can do this. Just bring that awareness. You can do what I did, so to speak, mentally. You do that. You don't explain that verbally usually. You just do it on the subtle level. And then envision your target, your person, fully healed. I said person, it could be an animal, or stone, or tree. Envision it fully healed. And then check, are we complete? And if yes, then withdraw your contact gently with gratitude. So let me give you three examples real quick of from Bibb's book of psychic healing. I'll keep these very short. First of all, let's start with something that isn't physical in the sense of something you can see on an x-ray or see with your eyes. Let's start with pain. And he says, using your hands, the person says, and the person may not say it out loud, you may just have to track, with your own awareness where their pain is, but they may say, and the reason I say that is that I've had people complain of pain in one place and my attention goes somewhere else. And I'm going like, that pain seems to be referred from one place to another. So I use my hands a lot as antennas. Where is my attention supposed to go? So they say, I got a headache. You put your hands by the head. They say, I have my shoulder hurts. So you put your hands by the shoulder. Now, remember, they may not be in the room with you. They may be around the other side of the world. It doesn't matter. I use Zoom a lot because that gives me a vision. I locate them as if they were in the room with me, only they're, wherever they are in the world. And then he says, use white energy flow into the affected areas. Now, to me, that's a little close to doing Qigong, to sending energy. And you could wind up sending your energy, which could be depleting, particularly if they have a big problem or many problems like that. So I just allow awareness to be in the field with that intention that a transformation should take place. And I let their energy and the energy of the cosmos, of the universe, do the transformation. I just let the cosmos take care of it, or the field take care of it. It's very, very powerful. Skin lesions, very similar. You scan the area. Notice any irregularities in the field and mentally desire that they smooth out. Just smooth them out. The irregularities. This is in the field. You don't smooth the skin lesion. Now you could, if there's a wart or something, you can go like, okay, let's just remove that. You don't physically remove it. It's in your mind. You say, just pluck that out. And you might envision the wart just falling off, coming away. Because you're doing that gives their subtle energy field the impulse to do that. So how about heart problems such as atherosclerosis? You can even heal congenital defects. Use tricks, use mental tricks, use your imagination. For atherosclerosis, he points out something very interesting. He says the heart is beating and you can't stop the heart while you work. And it might take you, a little while to do it. So he uses a technique called stop time, where you just tune in and you go like, oh, there's a problem in the heart. Maybe there's hardening of the arteries and you need to clean them out. And so you need the heart to stop. Now, in this modern age, you could just put the heart on bypass, right? You just have a bypass machine and you circulate the blood to the body and oxygenate it and remove the carbon dioxide with a machine. Or you can just stop time, which is a really wild idea. And you don't have to mentally do anything. You just say, stop time. And then you go like, and now, I'm going to clear out the obstructions. He kind of does it crudely. He says, you just scrape them out, take a little brush and scrub them. And then wash them with white healing energy, he says, which in my particular technique is just, I'm just there with the energy of healing. It's their intelligence, or the intelligence of the cosmos, the intelligence of the universe, that does the healing. And then end stop time and let the heart keep beating. And what's happened in the meantime is that you've done all that work in no time. That's pretty cool. And then he suggests bathing the heart in bright blue energy. It might be a different color if you intuitively feel that should happen. When I use colors, I'll get a sense, color. What color? And then a color will show up. Could be any color. Same could be done with music, by the way, which I've used. I don't use it so much, but sometimes either just tones will come to me, or chords, or sometimes a specific piece of music. It's like you need that piece of music because the vibration of that music is healing for you. And then just let that flow into them. So those are some examples of the kind where imagination comes in to help you with your approach to the healing. So I covered a vast amount of information. I had no idea it was going to take this long to go through this, but it was so much fun putting this together, and very much enjoyed doing this. So if there are any comments or questions, very quickly, please, because we need to move on, put them in the chat. And while you're doing that, I will distract you by letting you know that the next webinar will be on September 8th. That'll be the second Tuesday of the month, my usual time. So the webinar will be September 8th. And I think I'm going to take some examples from the book, The Healer's Handbook. I've referenced that book several times in webinars, but it's been in storage for the last 4 years, 5 years, I think. Good while anyway. And I didn't have access to it, but I cleaned out my storage shed last month, and I found the book, which was very, very satisfying. And so I will review some stuff from the book, because again, I think it's very, very amazing. The person that put this book together basically saw relationships between emotions and physical abnormalities. And some of them are incredibly specific, and they can be very helpful. And many times when I've had the book and somebody comes in and I don't intuit precisely what the underlying emotional charge is about a thing, I'll just read to them. They've got this ailment. I'll read them. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 possibilities, and I'll just say, which ones resonate with you? And then they tell me, and then we have stuff to work on. Sometimes they just don't have access to the emotion. And so reading them out loud is very, very helpful. Okay, no specific things. I'm going to end the recording here, and we'll move on to our group clearing session. Again, webinar next month, September 8th, on the contents of the Healer's Handbook. All right, ending the recording.